I'm in Denver today, which is a very weird city. There's a pseudo light rail with decent coverage, but it drops you off in the middle of nowhere. The bus network is also okay, if you're willing to sometimes wait 2 business days to go anywhere. But the weirdest part about Denver's transit might be this. Since 1982, the city has been running this shuttle for free down 16th Street Mall, and it comes once every 6 minutes or so, 20 hours a day. I've taken a fair amount of transit around the world, and I can honestly say that the free Mallride is surprisingly good. So good, in fact, that I had to find someone to help me explain why.
I think it helps you experience the city precisely because it's easy. Being bookended by 2 transit stations makes sense to connect in those ways.
That's true.
And you might once again be thinking, why should I care? Because the Mallride shows us how even car-centric cities like Denver can build transit-friendly areas. And in this video, we'll see why it's here to stay. Before we talk about why it's here to stay, I need to explain what the Mallride actually is. And I also need to address the inevitable comments about how downtown Denver is a drug-infested war zone. To help me explain, I got in touch with the Downtown Denver Partnership and met up with Ellen.
My name is Ellen Vorhofer. I'm the Senior Manager of Urban Planning and Design at the Downtown Denver Partnership.
Ellen graciously agreed to spend a few hours of her life giving me a tour of the mall and answering my questions, in exchange for you liking this video.
16th Street Mall is the spine of our downtown core, and along it is the 16th Street Free Mallride, which are regular shuttles providing a really important connection between Union Station and our Civic Center station.
Long before becoming a transit mall in 1982, 16th Street had been Denver's main shopping district for over 100 years. But by the 1970s, most US cities were in clear decline as richer residents moved out to the suburbs.
1930s, you see a lot of smaller footprints, smaller businesses. Through the 60s, you start to see some of those roadways.
At the same time, and perhaps perpetuating this decline, cities raised entire blocks in the name of urban renewal, effectively making way for cars driven by these suburban commuters, and ironically making traffic worse. Denver was no exception.
I believe it was 65 to 70 blocks of our downtown were raised. Here's 16th Street.
16th Street soon became choked with congestion. But to give the city credit, they actually did something about it. The downtown business community, RTD, and local government decided to completely remove cars from 16th Street between Market and Broadway, turning it into a pedestrian mall with a free Mallride shuttle bus service linking the 2 transit hubs at each end. For the private sector, more people on foot meant more business, and for the city, the Mallride's transit connections would allow people to get into downtown without driving, reducing congestion beyond the mall as well.
The mall serves as a really important kind of frequent connector, bringing people between those 2 transit stations.
Still, it was an extremely bold policy move.
Human-centered design and transit connections wasn't exactly something that we were seeing most other North American cities do, right?
But the gamble worked.
Safe!
Over 200,000 people showed up for the grand opening, and the mall has since become a core part of downtown with over 1 million visitors every month. The Mallride itself has also been impressive. Pre-COVID, the service carried over 10 million riders on an operating budget under 15 million every year. That's under $1.5 per rider, less than the operating deficit of many paid metro systems in the US. But it hasn't been all good news.
Of course, addressing the safety issues.
Homeless man right there who violently attacked people on the 16th Street Mall.
We have a lot of initiatives through partnerships with other agencies, as well as things we do in-house to try and help ensure that somebody ever is experiencing homelessness. What can we do to ensure that it is brief and non-recurring? There are significant challenges to that, and there always will be.
So it's clearly not perfect, evidenced by the homeless population literally on the doorstep of downtown's offices. But the fact that the Mallride and 16th Street Mall still exist is quite unique for North America. But of course, you're still free to disagree. All I ask is that you leave a thoughtful comment explaining why. With that out of the way, we can now look at why this whole experiment is here to stay. And it's surprisingly simple. My theory revolves around the total cost of transportation. Let's say I live near DU and commute downtown. I can drive, which could be anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes, or take the RTD, which will definitely be longer than 45 minutes, and I might have to fight someone, but I can watch high-quality YouTube videos about transit the whole way. Even without mentioning price, one of these options will be more attractive to you, because these non-financial factors, the time it takes, how comfortable you are, or how safe you feel, these all make up the total cost of each option beyond the amount actually coming out of your wallet for gas or a ticket, if you decide to pay.
You guys are not cops, right?
No, we're not.
Here's where most North American cities run into an issue. We've massively reduced the cost of driving through decades of car-centric design. In practical terms, this means things like huge freeways, cheap gas, and mind-numbing amounts of parking. For transit to be attractive, you therefore have to drastically reduce its cost or increase the cost of driving. Neither option is easy, and doing both is even harder. At this point, I'm gonna bring the Mallride and 16th Street back into the picture, because Denver somehow managed to do both. On one hand, the Mallride has reduced the cost of transit.
So it's not only frequent and reliable and connects to places you want to go, but it's entirely free. So whether you live here or if you're a visitor, right, I think it helps you experience the city precisely because it's easy.
On the other hand, the city has increased the cost of driving by turning 16th Street into a pedestrian mall, completely removing cars from the area and generally making it less attractive to drive downtown.
I think as we now look to rebalance our streets and have more modal choice, that could be said as making driving more hard. I think another way to say it is it's making choosing to walk, choosing to take the bus, choosing to drive more on the equal footing. I think where we find issues in terms of a healthy balance is when it's imbalanced.
And Denver clearly believes in this theory of balance. The mall is currently undergoing a $150 million renovation, a huge commitment that holds valuable lessons for other cities looking to replicate this success. Something we'll examine more closely in just a minute.
It did take a long time to have that conversation as a community to how to do this right. Like the sticky parts of the public realm of our transportation system, you know, where people want to gather and hang out, things like local businesses, apartments, and that creates a real vibrancy that I think will be something that we'll get to enjoy for a really long time.
So Denver's done something that's honestly quite impressive for a car-centric city. But what does this mean for other cities? I asked Ellen what other cities have to pay attention to if they want to do something similar.
I think it's really important to have community support, political will, and I think getting the basics correct is really important. What does it look and feel like when you're hanging out on the street? What does it look like when you're at intersections? These are all things that you need to think about in projects like that or like this one. But what do you think?
What do I think? Oof. I straight up don't have the mental capacity to think and film at the same time. But I thought about it later and came up with 3 success factors specific to the Mallride. First up, the Mallride and 16th Street Mall are a physically small network, just 1.2 miles each way. So you don't have to change an entire city for something like this to work. It doesn't take much to reconfigure a street for pedestrian use either, especially if you use temporary fixtures, like the infamous pedestrian pilot in New York's Times Square. Next up, it's relatively cheap to operate this free shuttle. The RTD spends under $15 million a year on the Mallride, basically half the amount that the Rockies are paying Chris Bryant to strike out 3 times a game. And finally, by hooking into existing transit networks, a city can make sure that the service will actually be useful. This can also kick off a virtuous cycle, where more coverage and frequency attracts more riders, feeding resources back into the network to further improve service. Some 80% of Mallride passengers connect on to the rest of the RTD network, so it's clearly useful in this regard. And off the top of my head, I feel like Dallas actually has really strong potential to do something similar. The AT&T Discovery District is a great first step, but most people still have to drive there in order to walk around. Interestingly enough, the area did have a pedestrian mall nearby in the 70s, but it was designed poorly, lacked transit connections, and was honestly a bit useless. What's different now is that Ackard has a DART station, so maybe it could actually work this time. The idea of making anything cost more is inherently controversial, and rightfully so. It'd be unfair to only increase the cost of driving without a commensurate improvement to the alternatives. Before I end this video, I want to acknowledge 3 things. First, I could have made this video about so many other parts of Denver's transit. It's full of interesting stories, from the Eagle P3 to the historic streetcar network. I chose to cover the Mallride because I've been coming to Denver quite frequently since my girlfriend moved here last fall, and it genuinely surprised me for how good of a service it is within such a car-centric city. And this video is where my curiosity took me. Second, A huge thank you to everyone who watched and commented on my last video about the Silver Line in DC. It's amazing to see so many people interested in transit, especially those who left detailed suggestions on what I can cover. Finally, and on a very related note, I'm heading to Chicago next. Based on some of your suggestions, I'm thinking of looking at the Circle Line, or Outer Loop, that never got built. If anyone has ideas about this, or other Chicago-specific topics, or people that I can reach out to, leave a comment below or send me an email. I'm always looking to meet people in the area. Of course, feel free to also leave a comment on any transit system you think I should cover. The list is already insanely long, but I have made a note of them. And that's it for this video. A huge thank you to Ellen for helping out. Denver is definitely doing something interesting, and maybe we can learn a thing or two. Thanks for watching.